Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Black economic empowerment transactions are under scrutiny at Exxaro Resources as existing BEE deals head towards their deadlines. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Exxaro's original 26% BEE shareholdings expire in 2016. What does this mean for the company?
You know, the fantastic thing about Exxaro Resources was that it was black controlled. It wasn't just black empowered. And that gave it the ability to confer empowerment on other companies, which was very beneficial, because that deal, I can remember driving out to Pretoria, in 2006, and Dr. Confaconia and Sipho and Cozy were putting this deal together with what was then called Kumba, the old Kumba Resources, before Kumba became Kumba Iron Ore. And Anglo American was wanting to get those iron ore assets, and Kumba was saying, well, look, let's build a whole new sort of structure here as we unbundle, and we will create a black controlled company, Exxaro Resources. And they brought Sipho and Cozy and his team over from Isizwe, which used to operate in Johannesburg, also in the coal business, and turned that then into Exxaro Resources, which had more than a 50% black shareholding, which was then able to confer BEE accreditation on a very good asset in iron ore, which was the Sishen Iron Ore Company, and at the same time retained 20% of that. So that was brilliant, because we know how iron ore has been pumping. It's not the story now, but it was really generating dividends that gave a big underpin to Exxaro, because it was getting 20% of those dividends flowing in. So it was marvelous. Times have changed, and there was also the aspect of giving accreditation to Black Mountain, which was the zinc side of Anglo American. What happened is, zinc lost favor. We saw the Chinese creating so much additional supply that people got so pessimistic about zinc that Anglo American decided to sell it off to Vedanta. So that Black Mountain asset now is in the Indian-rooted group Vedanta. But of course the whole issue of that black control and empowerment is now coming up, because 26% of that needs to remain within Exxaro, come what may, for them to be able to be empowered. And there's a deadline on it. So it was a brilliant deal that they did in 2006, but there's a deadline. Now, I'm sure that they imagined that during that period of tenure, the principle of once empowered, always empowered would take place, which means that they wouldn't have to look for a new BE partner. It would say, look, this company was empowered, it doesn't have to be re-empowered. But the Department of Mineral Resources is determined that you don't do that, so that when the deadline expires, that particular BEE structure either has to remain in place, or you have to bring a new BEE in, and that creates a lot of complications. And that's what's happening within the company at the moment.
Now, the company is undecided on the tenure of that BEE. What are the options that are open to them?
So it's saying, well, 10 years was the tenure previous year. Should we make it 5 years? Should it be shorter? Should the existing team stay on for another 5 years and then re-look at it? But it is, it's a constraint, because, the particular BE partners, they are finding themselves in a situation where they can't sell these shares on the open market. If you can't sell a share on the open market, its value just plummets. So what are you going to get out of this business? You've sort of put 10 years into it. Do you now have to put another 10 years? As you're reaching a sort of retirement age, it's becoming very confusing and complex, this whole thing. And I think it's emotionally upsetting to quite a few people how it's panning out. But of course, cowboys don't cry. You've got to live with the law. The law says there's got to be at least 26%, and it's got to be in a BEE grouping. So you have to pass from one BEE to the other BEE, and that could mean that a place like Black Mountain would say, well, if you're not going to give us another BE partner, in other words, if you're not going to have done this deal so that we are empowered as Black Mountain as we were before, just give that 26% to us for nothing, because we're going to have to lease it out to another BEE grouping, and we're going to probably have to fund that. So it's not a very enticing sort of value for us, and that is what I think has been an unintended consequence with this BEE, that it's all very well you hold on to these shares, but are they worth anything? Because at the moment, you can see Exxaro not in a great economic state. So if it was flying as high as it used to be, I'm sure other BE groupings would say, oh wow, let's get in there, let's get those shares. But at the moment, they're probably going to say, hey, give us a huge discount here, because we're going to be trundling along. That great dividend you got from the iron ore business under Kumba and Siok, the Sishan Iron Ore Company. Who says there are going to be dividends? With the iron ore price so badly down, zinc is coming up, but will we get anything out of that? Will there be dividends? Because you need to use those dividends to sort of pay off your purchase. You've bought this big BE block of shares, and you need a source of revenue to pay that off. And if it's vendor finances, the company will probably use the dividends they were going to give you to pay that off, and you then own it over a period of years, but it takes you some time. So it's very complicated. These BE deals have turned out to be extremely complicated. And one looks back at the early days of Harmony Gold, where the BE partner just sold out. He sold out at the top, even though it was unexpected. You thought, well, you've got a BE partner. You didn't realize your BE partner would just sell. Those guys have done better. They haven't made much contribution to the country. They've grabbed an opportunity. They've got the cash. They've run. They're doing other things with it. And the people who've really stayed the course, played the game, done it well, for the good of the country, looks like they sit with all these complex constraints. So it's really unfair.
Why is government so adamant on not going ahead with the principle of once empowered, always empowered?
I think that they probably want to make sure that there's always a BE holding, a black holding in these shares, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. That, this wealth would have been created, it would have been spread, and you can see what has been done for the communities as well. I mean, a booklet was handed out at the Exxaro, which showed just how much work these people are doing. This company has done in the community. They create butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. They actually fund all these enterprises. You can see the pictures, really successful, much smaller businesses. They also buy from black companies. They've played a big game, ticking off all the boxes. And there doesn't seem to be, any gold pot at the end of the rainbow here. And as I said, the people who didn't play the game have scored. So it's hard for South Africa. It's hard for the people who are sitting there in these situations at a time when mining, being cyclical, is in the trough, which is an added burden currently.
Yeah. Now, talking about that trough, Exxaro's headline earnings a share were down 6%, and their profit also plummeted. Can you elaborate on that?
They were wanting to go into iron ore, and who wouldn't want to go further into iron ore if you looked at it over the last 10 years? You saw this massive big dividend flow from Kumba iron ore, and you also saw other iron ore companies doing brilliantly. So there was a sort of an opportunity to go into iron ore in the Republic of Congo. Other companies were also champing at the bit, trying to get that. And again, Exxaro played the game. They went in there. I spoke to an Australian who was also building an iron ore mine next door. He said, well, the speed with which, Exxaro performed the execution of their project, the iron ore project in Republic of Congo, was amazing. He had never seen anything move so fast. But then through playing the game, getting it done fast, but not having certainty on the rail, which wasn't their control, under their control. So the project was under their control. They did everything that had to be done. The rail was not under their control. It was up to the government of the Republic of Congo to upgrade that rail and the port. And that rail and port has still not been upgraded. So what do you do in circumstances like that? You've ploughed 5.7 billion into this project. It's great for the country. You've done your bit. But again, your partner, which is the government, hasn't been able to do this and is even in a worse position now. So there's very little chance of it being done. So you've got to impair that. You write off 5.7 billion and your net operating profit goes down. So your balance sheet becomes weaker. That's the sort of situation that they are finding themselves now, that they can just hold on to that Republic of Congo asset and hope that, you know, those logistics are eventually put in place and that they can go ahead. But I'm sure that, you know, 3 years will elapse before something concrete happens, which again has showed that Exxaro has been an exemplary company. It's done everything well, but it's been a victim of circumstances and market plummeting and, you know, other components of their schemes not coming to light. And now also sitting here, you know, with a BEE constraint at a time when they can least afford it. We've seen other companies like Sanlam, you know, they had Patrice Motsepe's BEE grouping there. They have rolled that over for another 10 years. But of course, they are looking in a far better financially sound position. So that sort of becomes almost automatic. But it seems to me that, you know, the BEE partnership within Exxaro would like to have exited, and I think is wanting to exit, so they're going to have to pull some rabbit out the hat.
Well, we watch the space.
We will do.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.